G'day friends, welcome to today's video. This is a creative exercise that I have titled Negative Coloring. So we're actually going to look at how to color like a very angry person today. And I think you'll find some interesting results. No, we're not going to do that. This is a creative exercise. I want to say it's a tutorial, but honestly, tutorial implies that there is a lot to learn and you've already seen what we're learning today. It's literally all that's happened on the screen. That's all we're going to learn today. So I think creative exercise was a bit more appropriate because you don't really even need to tune into this one to get what we're doing. But essentially, it's coloring the negative spaces. And there's a reason that I would do this, and then I'm going to share that reason with you right now, I guess. Where was my train of thought going there? So basically when I'm drawing and illustrating, I love to illustrate. If I've got a spare 5 minutes, a pen and the back of an envelope, I will be illustrating until that 5 minutes is up and then probably some after that. But drawing all the time is great, and then when I want to go and color it, I get to this roadblock where I think, oh, I don't want to ruin it. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people get there and they think, I'm really happy with what I did, or, you know, I don't know where to go from here and it's probably better just to leave it, but I know I want color, but I can't even choose a color palette. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Or even worse, people do feel good enough to color it and then they get to the background, they think, what am I supposed to do here? It's just a cute, like, great drawing that I'm really proud of, but it's sitting in the middle of this blank white page. What am I supposed to do? So flip the script, honey. Like, color the background. Don't even worry about the image. I mean, obviously that's not going to work if you want to color the image, but if you have never tried coloring the negative space before, I mean, I think you're missing out on a little something, because it's a really fantastic technique, and you'll take it into other, you will take this idea and kind of put it into practice in other ways, not just with like a random illustration in the middle of a page. It's a really great technique to look at and kind of think about when you're coloring anything in general. I'm using a page from my mermaid book today, my mermaid coloring book, because these had very bold outlines and a very clear negative space. I thought it'd be a great page to demo it on. I had some handmade watercolors there, a really beautiful one from Zandra. These were both rose golds. Zandra had handmade this rose gold at a class, and then I have one from Xanadu Art Studio called Rose Gold Deep. Beautiful shades, like just obsessed with both of them. I did put a little bit of that pumpkin spice, I think was or pumpkin pie. Pumpkin spice. I'm that girl. It's fall, y'all. No, pumpkin pie, I think was the color. That was also from Xanadu Art Studio. I had a little sample dot. Basically, I just put watercolor in the background. Now, this paper doesn't take watercolor very well. If you saw my mum's coloring book flip, you'll see that she had completely inspired me to just create with reckless abandon in this book. And she actually she's going on holiday right now and sent me photos of her coloring her book, which is so bizarre to me. My mum has never colored a coloring book by herself. So I'm going to pop a little photo up there just to show you, because I was truly blown away and I'm very proud of her, so I want to put it up there. And it totally inspired me to crack the book out and do a demo in it. So thank you, Mum. This is the demo that I'm doing, and I just don't even know what I'm supposed to say. I mean, it's all been done. You can see it. You just color in the negative space. The reason you might want to do it, though, and beyond that point of like, oh, I don't want to ruin it, there are some really great things that happen when you color in the negative space, and the most obvious being that it provides a really great contrast. So when you color in all that area in the background, it forces it into the background, it recedes, and what that does is pop out whatever is in the foreground, which, you know, in this case would be the illustrations. And so I think it's a great thing to really showcase your illustrations with. If you are really proud of something, a sketch that you've done, or like a little piece that you've outlined and you've inked, and you just want it to pop, like you don't need it to have anything more. Maybe you just want to do a pop of color on the cheek, but the rest you just want to color in the background. I think that'd be cute too. It's just a really great way to highlight and emphasize the illustration on the page. It doesn't even have to be an illustration. It could just be your journaling, or it might even be, I guess those are the only two things that I'm thinking of right now, but whatever you want to pop out, I mean, just think about receding the background. I think illustrations, it works well with, obviously, these black and white ones with a very obvious outline. The other illustrations I like to do it with are things that are very sketchy and very loose, because I don't often want to take something that's very expressive and put color on it, because then I start to build structure in with how I'm coloring it. So suddenly what was once very loose and very expressive and very whimsical looking might lose some of that. It might lose some of that integrity that it had in the initial sketch when I start to color it a bit more rigidly, and I think in that case it's just better for me to paint the background. I do have a bunch of examples that I'll montage at the end as well. One of the more ones that's recently that you might have even been familiar with was the birthday swatch dolls. That was something that I colored the negative space in. So it was that negative coloring again. I was on an Instagram live, I was also doing some stamping, and I was only coloring in the negative space on that. So I have a bunch of samples that honestly span from like over the past couple of years. And so I can't say this is something new. I don't know where I picked it up. Honestly, if I remembered, I would tell you. But I do know that it's not a new idea, and I'm definitely not taking credit for it. It's been around for thousands of years. We're basically just coloring in the backgrounds. But I've got a few tips for it as well. So if you are going to try it, I would suggest it works best when your illustration is very bold, very black and white, or just, graphite and white page. Like, I wouldn't start adding in a lot of color, because then you're starting to make the background compete with the foreground. And the best part about this exercise is that it is a simple way to achieve that really stark contrast between your illustration and whatever's going on in the background. You get to add all the color in there, you get to be really free and loose with it, but you also get to have all of that initial love for the illustration that you did in the first place. So I wouldn't try and make those compete with each other. Personally, I like to keep it very black and white, but on this page I did show you how you could possibly build a journal page from it. And if you wanted to add color to it, I would even stick with the same palette that was in the background, so that it still tied together a little bit, it still looked very cohesive, and I would still keep it very minimal. I know I'm about to put 1,000 lines on this, but I still think it's minimal because I'm not adding a bunch to it. The background was kind of plain. I do add a stencil to it, so I'm going to say that this example wasn't the best example, but I just wanted to take it to the point where I thought, I wouldn't take it any further. So I didn't want to say, only do black and white images, that's the only way it's going to work. Absolutely not. This technique will work with a bunch of different things and in a bunch of different variations, but you'll get a different effect from it. And I think it's most effective with the black and white image and then the background. I would suggest that if you're doing a very detailed black and white image, that you keep the background kind of non-detailed and nondescript. If you're going to do something that's very plain, like the last illustration that I show you today, the Frida that I do, if you're going to do something that looks very plain and standard, that's when I would kind of go a little bit crazier with my background, because I even like to contrast that up. I've said before, when you're coloring, keep the foreground simple and the background crazy, or keep the foreground crazy and the background simple, because you don't want the foreground and the background to compete with each other if you want something to stand out. If you just want the whole page to be a page, there's no reason to think about any of this stuff. But if you are looking to be a bit more intentional with how you create, or there's a specific look or an idea that you're trying to work with, these are some of the things that would cross my mind when I'm trying to make sure, I've got the contrast the way that I want it, that what I want to pop is really popping. These are the things that I kind of think about. I do want to put a bit of another disclaimer out there if I can. When I'm teaching, and this comes up so randomly, but and I was thinking about it the other day, because my mum and I were so funny in this one instance. I'm not going to tell you more about it because honestly it's just way too revealing, but my mum and I just basically were supposed to be learning something and we were cheating. We didn't want to do it the way that the teacher was saying it. It was a very informal learning environment. Like, honestly, okay, I'll just tell you what it was. We were making Christmas cards with a friend of a friend, and she was a lovely lady, and she wanted to teach us all about making Christmas cards using it's like a folded paper technique, and it was, I don't know, it felt very origami-esque, but it was all layered papers and a cutout, and it was very involved. Like, she was very good at teaching it, and the best part about it, I thought, was that the envelopes, we use the insides of envelopes. If you've never sat down and looked at the inside of an envelope, you're missing out on a whole lot of free patent paper. Let me tell you that much. Go out and check your junk mail, see the insides of those envelopes, and tell me that you don't come across a bunch of different patent papers. So we were using those. We were it's like a little destash, recycle, reuse project, I guess. And it was really, really fun to do. But in a learning environment, my mom and I are just a little bit like, if you tell me to do this, I'm probably not going to. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm just going to have to be honest about it. I'm like that. If you tell me to do it one way, I'm probably going to look for another way to do it. It's just a part of my personality. I don't think it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not encouraging you to be like that, but I have to admit that is how I am. And my mum is 20 times worse. So someone go and get my mum from under that bus. So we were doing that. We were learning that, and I felt bad because at one point I did see that the lady teaching us was a little bit upset that my mum and I were just trying to take matters into our own hands and we weren't really listening. And you know, we did stop at that point, and we're like, okay, we'll do what we're supposed to do, and then after we've finished learning, we'll make our own the way we want to make it, and that's fine. I encourage you to do that. I think that's the best that I could have done at that point. I'm trying to get better at being a student. I've just never been a good one. But as a teacher, and I think I formulate this idea knowing what I'm like as a student, as someone that gives instruction, please don't ever think that I need you to follow me to the word. It's great if you do, and if you want to take these tutorials and these creative exercises and follow them from start to finish, I really do appreciate that. But if you're also a type of person like me that maybe only needed to see the first 3 minutes of this video, or maybe only needed to see the montage at the end, that's okay too. You're allowed to admit that. In fact, I personally encourage you to do it because it would make me feel less crazy. I just don't want you to think that you have to indulge that part of you that says, oh, well, he's telling me to do it like this and I want to do it like that, but I'll just do it like this first. That's great. You can try it. But as if it's one of my tutorials, please go with what you're feeling. Go with your gut. If I'm telling you not to do a crazy background and a crazy foreground and you're like, well, I just kind of wanted to try it. Girl, try it. Please. You do you, boo-boo. You know what I mean? Like, I can't sit here and tell you not to do that because that would be so hypocritical of me. And I kind of want to just remove the stigma a little bit because honestly, I think it's just in my genetic makeup, obviously, right? Because my mum was guilty. She was the one doing it. And I felt so bad about it, but at the same time, I thought that's just the way that I learn. That's the style that I learn. That's how I like to learn. I'm most effective learning like that, knowing what I need to know and then just going for it. And I think it's in a lot of that playtime that I start to make make more sense to me. Like, I'm starting to figure out how I really need to approach this tutorial and what I need to get out of it. I don't need to get everything out of every tutorial. Some things I only needed to learn 3 parts of before I decided, okay, that's great. That's exactly what I needed. Super helpful. And if you're like that too, I don't want you to have to indulge me and say that you did the whole thing if what you really just needed to know was the technique or how to achieve it. So I don't know. There's no one out there like that. I'm certainly not saying that anyone's wrong for the way that they're learning, but I do just want to encourage you to only take what you need and literally go with your gut. I know sometimes we think, well, I should just follow it, and then we have this idea, we think, well, we can try it again. I don't even want you to get there. Be experimental and take the opportunity when your gut's telling you to do something. Just run with it. You might stuff it up. I've done it a million times, but it was more beneficial for me to go with that than it was to sit and labor through the rest of something that I didn't want to be doing. I know that from a fact. That is just fact. You need to kind of just go with your gut. So I want to encourage that in you. I want to remove that stigma for you. If you're someone that feels a little bit guilty about it like I used to, and I still currently do, but I think I'm going to try and get over it. New Year's resolution. Can you make those in September? I wanted to encourage you to take what you need from these tutorials, not just this one today. I mean, this is very simple. There's not much to, have to sit down and labor through, but something like the hair tutorial, if you just needed to know how to draw the bangs and that's it. You know what I mean? Go with the rest of it. If I said do your fro in this circle shape, but you were like, well, what would it look like as a flower shape? Draw the flower. It would still work. You take the same ideas, the same principles, and that's where you're going to get the most out of your learning experience. That's where you kind of have to take education into your own hands a little bit and be a bit more of and take a bit more of a self perspective. I'm only ever sharing things that work for me, and I'm only ever sharing techniques and things that I enjoy, but I don't discredit the fact that we're all completely different creatives. Even if we like the same stuff, we're going to like different materials, we're going to like different brands, we're going to like going about it a different way, we're going to have different amounts of time to commit to things, and I want to encourage you to have a bit more of a think about how you learn and what it is you're actually trying to take away from it. And if at any point you're telling yourself that you're not allowed to just go with your gut, because that's what I want you to go with. And hopefully this creative exercise is something simple enough for you to experiment with over the weekend. But if I can just leave you with a lasting thought over the weekend, it would just be to know for yourself how you learn and what it is you want to take, and just to be okay with that. Remember, it's not going to matter to me. Like, I would never get offended if you watched a video and you didn't do it word for word. Like, if you didn't follow the tutorial the way that you were supposed to. I don't care. If you only need to take one idea, one concept, if you want to bend it and shape it and remold it to work for you, that's the point. Like, I will have succeeded if what you're doing is just working for you. No matter if it didn't look anything like the tutorial at all, as long as you were happy with what you learned and you felt like you could go forward in that, that is literally a job well done for me, and I wouldn't complain. So I just want to put that out there. I'm going to try and take away the stigma from being a naughty student and an unfocused student. Honestly, I just need you to do whatever you need to do to be more creative, spend more time doing it, have more fun doing it. That's all I care about. So hopefully this is a creative exercise that you have some time for this weekend. If not, totally fine. I will see you again on Monday with a new video. Bye.